Hi everyone, welcome to 5 Quote Shakespeare Hamlet Theme Analysis. In this series we look at a total of 14 different themes, and in this video we'll look at 5 different aspects of existentialism: thrownness, alienation, absurdity, nihilism, and radical freedom. What I do in each video is first identify the important aspects of the theme and apply them to the play, and then we dig deeply into the text of each play and pull out several quotes that prove the connection. If you find these videos useful, please like and subscribe, and if you make a donation you get a complete set of the PDFs I use in this series. See the description for details. Hamlet, of course, is not technically an existential work. It was written a couple hundred years before existentialism was quote-unquote invented. Where it emerged from is the need to explain our place in the universe given the new scientific knowledge that we had been gaining since the Renaissance. So as science progressed, the need to explain the universe and our place in it without rational scientific evidence diminished. We used to rely on religions to explain who we are and our place in the universe. And it was very, very, very comforting. By the mid to late 1800s, Christianity had begun to lose its power to provide comfort, certainty, purpose, meaning, and moral guidance. There was a major, major crisis. And I think one of the most sensitive renderings of that crisis was in Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold in the mid to late 1800s. Listen to this. He says, "The sea of faith," that's religion, "was once too at the full, and it was like a girdle around earth, and it was very protective and comforting, lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But what's going on now I only hear its religion's melancholy long withdrawing roar, retreating. Religion is retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world," the naked beaches of the world. Now look at those words. The vast edges drear and the naked beaches of the world. Do you see? The cosmos has been emptied of all of its comfort. And so where do we find meaning? Where do we find purpose and then comfort? Well, Matthew Arnold has an answer for it, and it's love, and that's Shakespeare's as well. Okay, so that was around the mid to late 1800s when that really started to kick off with Nietzsche's Death of God. But for hundreds and thousands of years before that, human beings still had been wrestling with these particular questions, the questions of our place in the universe. So existential angst, that anxiety that comes from the empty cosmos, existential angst and the questioning of our place in the universe is much, much older than Nietzsche's Death of God in the mid-1800s. Many of the thoughts, fears, anxieties central to existentialism had been explored in literature for thousands of years before that. Shakespeare, now, where does Shakespeare lie in all of this? Without explicitly denying the existence of God, he doesn't. He never really does. But Shakespeare does wrestle with many of the same doubts and themes, which has led some scholars to suggest that perhaps he was an atheist, because atheism was a thing back in those days, but it wasn't a very common thing. I don't think he was, but those doubts nag on everybody, even if you do have religions, a religion to provide comfort. Those questions are unavoidable at some point. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. That's the opening line of Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus. It's a really, really good question, and we've been answering it somewhat in this video so far, and we're going to talk about it a bit more. Nietzsche himself, the Death of God guy, very, very pessimistic view of life, and he found a possible solution as well. He said, if we have our own why of life, we shall get along with almost any how. So the how being the Sisyphean struggle of struggle, why bother, the who would fartles bear and to grunt and sweat under this burden of life. If you find a why, if you find a purpose and a meaning, now it's very, very sad that we lost that meaning when we lost our religion. But we have to find it again. And Shakespeare does. He really, really does. And as I said, all these other existentialists, these pessimists haven't killed themselves, so obviously they found a why to live. So how to fend off nihilism? So if there really is absolutely no meaning or value in life and no point in the struggle, suicide seems logical. We must find a reason not to kill ourselves. We need to find a why of life. Hamlet can't commit suicide because he still has God to prevent that suicide, yes, of course. But this didn't stop Shakespeare from posing the question all throughout this play. That's what he says, to be or not to be, that is the question. Shakespeare asked that question despite the fact that Shakespeare probably believed in God. So it's a nagging question. Even if you have a religion, it's a nagging question. Shakespeare's answer to the suicide problem is certainly love. You see it again and again in his plays. And where there is an absence of love, there is nihilism, honestly. It is the cure for alienation, the cure for purposelessness. We see it in Romeo and Juliet. Their love cures the wasteland, as flawed as that cure is. The Tempest, we see it. We see the divine marriage, the divine union of opposites, male and female, in the Tempest. It cures a kind of wasteland. Twelfth Night, we see it curing the wasteland. Othello, too, the great potential that was wasted of a true love, a marriage of true minds, as Shakespeare said. In Macbeth, for sure, and in the sonnets. Now, I'm just quickly going to point to, this is from my Macbeth video, and I just want to point out that this is the face, this is Ian McKellen in the 1979 version, the best version of Macbeth, by the way. That's the face of nihilistic despair, not just existentialism, where he's wrestling with the Sisyphean problem. He's succumbed to the Sisyphean problem, and he's become a nihilist here. He's ready to burn the world down like the Joker. He's ready to destroy everything because he's got nothing. Well, where did that come from? It comes from here. Look at this. Late in the play, in Act 4, he says, and that all of this is in this scene. He says, everything that I should have at old age, as the honor, love, obedience of friends, loyalty of friends, troops of friends, I must not look to have. But in their stead, I've only got curses. The world is cursing me. Not loud, but deep. All I've got is mouth honor. People are pretending to love me. So he has been bereft of that why to live. He's a man. He was a social man. He did require and value the love of his fellow beings, and he has cut himself off from all of this, and so he's fallen into nihilism. It's a similar problem with the Joker. Of course, Joker has that nihilism thrust upon him more than Macbeth. Macbeth was the victim of his own stupidity. But yeah, that's a big problem. And in a lot of his plays, Shakespeare's answer is in that love. Just to go back to this quote very, very quickly, it's the same thing we've already looked at. Nothing matters. It's the same thing. He says it's like, what is it, 3 times now that Hamlet says the same thing? A man may eat of fish, may fish with a worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that has fed of that worm. Again, it's that horrific life cycle. I'm this great noble human being living right now. That's me. And yet I'm going to be this worm. I'm going to be a vitamin in a worm, do you see? And Claudius, of course, is a pragmatic thinker, and he's just saying, what on earth? He's more like Horatio here. He's like, what are you talking about? It's to consider too deeply to consider so. Hamlet says, I don't mean anything, nothing but to show you how a king may go the progress through the guts of a beggar. Now he's taking the piss out of Claudius here because he hates Claudius, but at the same time he's making a great existential statement, and that's, again, it goes back to what we talked about, that absurdist humor is double-edged. It's really, really funny, but it's also poignant and hits home at the same time. So there's another nihilistic statement as well, that nothing means anything. You may be king, but you're still going to go through the guts of a beggar. And if you succumb to that, you end up with this particular face. So how does that apply to Hamlet? So like Macbeth, Hamlet has no Nietzschean why or love. We've looked at his alienation. We've looked at his sense of thrownness into the wasteland. He's lost all of that, or he never had it to begin with? No, that's not true. At the beginning of the play, bad things have happened. He is in a wasteland, and so he's lost all of that. He's been thrown into that wasteland. He's alienated. Life is absurd. He suspects life is absurd. He's got no. Now here's the love part here. He's got no spirit of the father or the mother. The mother is corrupt, so he can't rely on her for a sense of comfort in the world, a sense of purpose in the world. He's got no Dumbledore. He's got no Sirius Black. He's got no Professor Lupin to provide that masculine guiding spirit. The Patronus is a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. It's a personification. It's a metaphor for that ennobling spirit of the father. That the love that the father can give to the son. It can work with the daughter as well in different ways, but the father-son bond is its own bond, and the daughter-father, daughter-mother bond is its own bond as well. It's got its own character to it. And so the spirit of the father is necessary. Harry Potter is succumbing to depression, very much like Hamlet, until he's able to summon that spirit of the father to propel him forward forthrightly, nobly, courageously into the world. That's what we need. It's a defense against this existential despair. It's the why of life. I'm living in the honor of my father. Or my mother, whatever perspective you have. I've got someone at my back, and I've got something to fight for. If you have kids, it's even greater. So have kids. So Hamlet has none of that. He has no kids. He's got no spirit of the father because his father was a tyrant. Here it is here, yes. He's remember me, says the tyrant father. He is a tyrannical spirit, I believe. There's lots of evidence for that. He's got no peers. He's got Horatio. Fair enough. He does have Horatio. But as I said before, that it's the weight of the odds arrayed against Hamlet and Horatio are too great, and that one friendship is not enough. He hasn't built up the network of social security. He's got no wife. He's got no children. He's got no romantic love. Partly now we have to say that that's not all Ophelia's fault. It's the parental interference and Ophelia's weakness and Hamlet's own selfishness. He's a crude guy too. Unlike Macbeth, Hamlet doesn't become a full nihilist, however. He's still able to see and wish for good in the world. Now, this is what I have to argue as well. He doesn't want to burn the world down. He behaves badly. He kills Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He's not a really likable character, but he's a very, very sympathetic character. Although that's true of Macbeth as well, but Macbeth is a mass murderer in a way that Hamlet is not quite, but almost. Oh, it's so hard to get a sense of that. Anyway, but he doesn't become a joker. Obviously, he doesn't want to burn the world down. His last thoughts on earth before he dies, it's concern for others. So he says, "Oh, I die, Horatio. I cannot live long enough to hear news from England." I have no idea what to make of that line. Now remember, he killed his old buddies, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, by sending them off to England and have England kill them. And his last thought on earth is what happened to them. Why? If Shakespeare wanted us to see Hamlet as a Macbethian kind of joker, burn it all down, nihilist, why would he have him wondering about that? I do not believe that Hamlet is saying, "Oh, I wonder if England did my dirty work. Oh, I hope they did it." That's not what he's thinking. I think he's terribly, terribly guilty about sending his buddies off to die. He knows he made a mistake. And I've mentioned earlier in other videos that Horatio actually kind of accuses him of, "You know what, buddy, you just killed your buddies, buddy. Buddy, question mark, do you see?" So I think he feels really, really bad about that. So he's not this burn it all down nihilist. And his very, very last thought is, "I do prophesy the election of the kingship of Denmark will fall on Fortinbras." So he is thinking of the good of his society, do you see? So he's not that nihilist. He is somewhat redeemed by that. You've got to make a case for that yourself. Okay, radical freedom. Okay, so that was existentialism, thrownness, alienation, absurdity, nihilism, and radical freedom. I hope you found these videos useful. And if you did, please like and subscribe. And come back for my next video. We'll talk about the Dark Triad. I hope you found these videos useful. And if you did, please like and subscribe and pick up a copy of your PDFs if you need them. Thanks for watching.